Playing game horror is not like playing other genres. You won't find comfort here, but it will surprise, frighten, and even make you anxious. However, this gives its own charm so that people want to play horror games. So here are the top 15 horror games for Potato PC. First of all, let's start this list with something classic, namely Silent Hill 2.
Mary, could you really be in this town?
Silent Hill 2 is a survival horror game that was released back in 2001. This game tells the story of James Sunderland, who was forced to enter a city called Silent Hill with thick fog after receiving a mysterious letter from his late wife, who had long died. This game can be considered as one of the best horror games made by Coma, which later became the beginning of the Silent Hill franchise after presenting various very iconic monsters, where these scary monsters are the main symbol of what happened to James' life as the main character. Sadness, anger, and frustration manifest into deadly monsters.
Oh my God. Who could have?
Number 2 is Outlast. Outlast is the first-person shooter survival horror game released in 2013. Unlike the majority of other horror games, Outlast will not provide players with any weapons. In this game, you play as a journalist named Miles Upshur who happens to be very lucky to be trapped in the Mount Massive Asylum's ancient asylum. This mental hospital is inhabited by patients and doctors who unfortunately can no longer be categorized as humans. To survive, you are only equipped with the ability to run and a camcorder with limited battery. Number 3 is the Coma, Recut. The Coma, Recut is a 2D side-scrolling horror game from South Korea. Here you will play Young-ho, a first-year high school student with very poor academic performance. Young-ho's day begins with various very strange incidents, starting from meeting a mysterious woman who stands alone in front of his school, facing his schoolmate who was rushed to the hospital because he almost committed suicide last night at school, and having to face an exam that he couldn't do at all the day that. The series of strange events were made even stranger when Young-ho suddenly fell asleep and woke up in the middle of the night at his school. What's worse, he doesn't just fall behind in the middle of the night at school, because his school at night clearly holds so many terrible mysteries. It is your job as Young-ho to find out what really happened to you and find a way out through the two-dimensional corridors of his school. Number 4 is the Layer of Fear.
That's it. Perfection. What the? Give me that!
Layers of Fear is a psychological horror adventure game released in 2016. The player controls a psychologically disturbed painter who is trying to complete his magnum opus as he navigates a Victorian mansion revealing secrets about his past. The challenge comes from puzzles which require the player to search the environment for visual clues. The house appears straightforward at first, but it changes around the player as they explore it in first person. These changes in the environment provide scaffolding for the puzzles, and provide regular jump scares common to games of this genre.
True portrait. So that's what I painted.
Number 5 is F.E.A.R.
What took you so long? Try to find a way around.
The game's story revolves around a supernatural phenomenon, which F.E.A.R., a fictional special forces team, is called to contain. The player assumes the role of F.E.A.R.'s point man, who possesses superhuman reflexes and combats an army of cloned soldiers, and at the same time uncovers the secrets of a paranormal menace in the form of a little girl. Number 6 is Manhunt.
You're getting a second chance. Another throw of the die.
Manhunt is a 2003 stealth game developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. Set in the fictional city of Carcer City, players will follow a character named James Earl Cash. He is a death row inmate who was forced to participate in an event where he can earn his freedom by killing members of a criminal gang sent to hunt him down on camera. Number 7 is Cold Fear.
What the hell is that?
In this game, you will play a character named Tom Hansen. He is a member of the United States Coast Guard, who comes to help Russian whalers in the Bering Strait. On his way, he discovers a mysterious parasite has turned the ship's crew into zombie-like creatures. Cold Fear carries the genre of survival horror third-person shooter, which can be played from a fixed third-person camera perspective or an over-the-shoulder camera, depending on the player's preference. Number 8 is Saw the video game.
You have lost your hell, whittled away by the bullet wound in your chest.
Part of the Saw film franchise, Saw the video game is set between the first and second films. Saw is primarily a third-person survival horror game with elements of the action genre. The player controls David Tapp, a former detective trapped in an abandoned asylum filled with jigsaw traps. The primary goal of the game is to traverse the asylum and survive traps in order to escape. Tapp has several abilities in the game, such as the ability to search things like toilets and corpses to find items such as weapons, health, or clues he can use to fulfill his objectives. Number 9 is Dreadout. Dreadout is a survival horror game from Indonesia that tells stories and ghosts, typical of that country. The story in Dreadout begins with a meeting between a group of high school students and their mentor, and the old city. Previously, Linda, the main character in this game, had a dream about a scary incident. Together with their classmates named Ira, Shelley, Yan, Doni, and their teacher Mrs. Siska, they find a broken bridge that connects them to the old foggy city. Dreadout is a third-person horror game that uses mechanics similar to those found in the Fatal Frame series. The player uses modern gadgets, such as her smartphone and a digital camera, to interact with various kinds of Indonesian mythical ghosts, and to help her solve various puzzles. Number 10 is The Suffering.
Thank God I made it into the light. I think I'm safe in the light. You've got to get me out of here! No!
The Suffering takes place in a prison with super tight security. Here the player will play as a prisoner named Torque who is being held and will be sentenced to death for a murder that he may not have actually committed. On the first night Torque arrives at a prison on the island of Carne. There is a strong earthquake that releases a number of monster armies in the prison. Torque, who is free from his detention room, must try to survive and escape from the island alive. The game has 2 camera modes, first-person shooter and third-person shooter, and the gameplay is fully playable in both first and third-person views, with all actions available in both modes. Torque can run, shoot, jump, interact with the environment, interact with NPCs, and use items. Number 11 is Detention. In this 2D atmospheric horror side-scroller, players navigate the main characters in a classic point-and-click fashion to explore a high school where evil encroaches. While hiding from the rampaging monsters, you are to find items to interact with in the otherworldly rooms. Game Detention is set in a fictitious world in the 1960s Taiwan under martial law, which tells of 2 students who are trapped in a fairly isolated school in a mountainous area. The place they once knew has changed in unsettling ways, haunted by evil creatures. To escape, they must explore the mysterious campus filled with ominous objects and puzzles. Number 12 is White Day. You play as a teenage boy named Huey Min Lee who sneaks into school at night. He only did this reckless act to secretly return the fallen diary of his crush, as well as to surprise her by leaving a box of chocolates to commemorate White Day. Unexpectedly, you are not alone in that school building. Huey Min has to play cat and mouse with the brutal school guard, meet several of his friends, and intersect with supernatural events related to the school's dark past. White Day uses a first-person perspective to provide players with a horror experience. You will explore the haunted school building directly through Huey Min's eyes. Number 13 is The Cat Lady.
My name is Susan Ashworth. Earlier tonight, I swallowed a whole...
The story takes place in the mid-2000s. The protagonist is Susan Ashworth, a chronically depressed, middle-aged woman with no friends. She hates flowers, and her only companion are stray cats, whom she summons to flatten her by playing the piano. She is known in her neighborhood as the Cat Lady. One night, Susan decides to take her own life, but this leads her to explore a strange place in death where she encounters the Queen of Maggots. The Queen grants her immortality and gives her the task of ridding the world of 5 psychopaths referred to as the Parasite. The Cat Lady carrying the puzzle-based adventure genre. The game is entirely played using only the 4 arrow keys, with the ESC key being used to access the save, load menu, Directions arrow right and left to move, and up and down to interact with objects.
Can't you just let me die?
As long as they are alive, you cannot die.
Number 14 is Emily Wants to Play. Emily Wants to Play is an action-adventure casual indie simulation strategy which was released in 2015. The player takes on the role of a pizza delivery man who has been trapped in a house by a young girl named Emily and her 3 dolls. Each level of the game is represented by a different hour of the night from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. During these levels, various combinations of the dolls and Emily appear. The player must learn how to interact with Emily and her dolls in order to survive the night. Number 15, Murder House.
We don't have all day. Once host.
Murder House is a slasher-inspired horror game by Puppet Combo, originally released for Microsoft Windows in October 2020. The game focuses on a news crew arriving at the house of a thought-dead serial killer to film a documentary, only for the killer to re-emerge and hunt them down. Murder House takes advantage of the mechanics found in classic horror games. The game features tank controls to move the player character, and uses fixed camera angles by default, although there is also an option to play in first person. As they explore the game, players can find items which can progress the plot, such as keys and weapons, as well as pencils which are used to save the game.